All right. Hey, hey. I think I am live. Excellent. This is Sasha Rose with Venus Wisdom. And give me 1 second here. All right. Hey, hey. Oops. I think I am. There's that delay. Just want to record this really quick. Record. Here we go. Here we go. All right. It is Friday, April 10th, and I'm inspired to go on and just share some what's moving. What I am holding is the syncing with Venus in her cycle with the sun as a heroine's journey. I've been doing this for 13 to almost 14 years. And I've discovered that this is an incredible tool. It's a map, and it is calibrated to help us go on a heroine's journey, inner journey, feminine journey within, to discover the truth of who we are and our essence, and to then discover our gifts and our qualities and what we are here to embody and what we are here to support and help birth in this incredible change of ages as we end the Kali Yuga and the age of Aquarius is dawning. It is not an easy time to be here. And there's a whole paradigm that's shattering, and it has been falling apart for a long time for those that have been really tracking this. And so if you are in my Facebook group, you saw that I made a post, and I want to read that post, and I want to unpack a little bit of what I meant by that post, because I want to set the stage for what this journey can be as a template, as a contemplation, as a cosmic guide on our personal journey of awakening to the truth of who we are, and awakening to what this realm really is. Because if we're not tuning in to what's really happening in this reality, we're not going to be able to create the new. And sometimes it is challenging to really look at the level of corruption, the level of harm that is done here, the level of suffering that happens, and yet we can't deny it. And so I am here to call out to those of you women who feel this, because I want to find the women that are resonating with this. And I want to share with you what I've found and what I've discovered, because what this is, it's a system, a map, a key to waking up to more of your wisdom. So I am not here to tell you your wisdom. I am not here to share what is the right way, but this system helps women. I've seen it so many times, and personally, it helps us to connect with our own wisdom and our own truth, and to show up and to represent in a world that doesn't want us to be in our truth, doesn't want us to share what we're discovering, because usually it's going to confront the status quo. It's going to disrupt this matrix system that wants us to be distracted, that wants us to be docile, that wants us to feel like this is workable. It's not. So what I posted is the first revelation of the underworld is that we are living in a hell realm. The first revelation of the underworld is that we're living in a hell realm. And with the Epstein files coming out, and many who have been seeking truth for a long time knew that this realm is run by beings who literally eat innocence, literally thrive on abuse of innocence in ways that, if you are a normal human being, it's unimaginable. It's so horrific. And at the beginning of this cycle that we're in, so when I'm talking about the Venus cycle, I'm talking about the 19 months, this period of time from when Venus conjuncts the sun, meets the sun, closest to the earth, and then goes through this whole process of birth, creation, descent, initiation in the underworld. So all the birth, creation is morning star, descends into the underworld, and then re-arises and rebirths, resurrects in the evening star. I'm going to show you the map for that because it's really, really helpful to know where we are in the cycle. It's really, really helpful to know when you were born in the cycle, because this is the rhythm. This is the feminine rhythm that we were born into. Most women don't know where they were born in that process. But that process that repeats again and again is such a cosmic support in deconditioning our programming, our brainwashing, our conditioning and patterns of who we told we were. And then to really awaken to the truth of who we are. And then to do it again 19 months later. So it's this life initiation rebirth process that repeats again and again and again. And so the first time that I had that revelation that we were in the underworld, it really hit me. We are living in a hell realm. And to look around and see what is normalized increasingly. I was born in 1970, so increasingly the violence and the degradation of the feminine that has been normalized is horrific to wake up to that. And it can be really hard on the nervous system. And so the process of this cycle can help us so that we're not taking it all at once. And I think for those that knew nothing and then started to dive into the Epstein files and to look at all of that detail and look at all of that horrible, horrible abuse, that they were traumatized because there was not enough time to stabilize the nervous system. So this cycle helps because it's like going layer by layer by layer. And so we need to calibrate. We need to be able to hold ourselves as beings of love as we descend into the darkness and understand what this realm is. So this cycle that we're in started March 22nd, 2025. And at the beginning of the cycle, it really lit up for me that there was this young woman who was coming out who was a survivor of Diddy, and she was trafficked and went through incredible abuse, unimaginable abuse, ritual abuse. Her name's Allie Carter. And I realized in that moment that until we can see and recognize that this is happening, we cannot build a new paradigm, anything. There has to be that recognition. That doesn't mean that we get lost in it. It doesn't mean that we dwell there. Yet, if we don't have that recognition, we're not really in touch with the current system and how it's infecting us, because it is in us, not at that level, of course, but this kind of abusive, dominating energy, it's inside of us. And that's why we have to take an inner journey. So we can't just be going externally. I mean, all of these things help to go to therapy, to have different modes of healing. Of course, that's important. But we need to find where that energy lives within us. And so another way to say this that might be easier for some women to connect with is that that is the energy of the patriarchy, the disdain of the feminine that has really been in a pursuit of total domination for at least 2,000 years. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that. but that patriarchy lives within us. And so we need to, don't, if we want to create something new, we need to see that. We need to see it externally, and then we need to see it internally. So just recently I was reading something, and I don't remember who said this, but they said, if you ever have in your head this negative voice arguing with this other negative voice, which I think we all can relate to, you should have done that, and you should have done this, and no, it's this, and that back and forth. Well, who's listening to that argument? Who's witnessing the argument? There's some other part of us that's not that. And these voices have been very, very strong in my own head. I have the planet Pluto in a square, in a tense aspect with Mercury, my mind. And so I have had these incredible negative voices and been aware of them in my mind my whole life. As a child, I was really dealing with this, didn't know what the heck was going on. But I do remember that, just this, it's like a tape. It's like this negative voice, right? We all have those negative voices. Some of us have it more than others. And I remember when I went to massage school and I first started doing massage, there was some part of me that was intuitively and instinctually, I knew what to do in those sessions. I knew how to flow and how to give the kind of touch and pressure and to really nurture that person. But there was this voice that just would not shut up. That was like, you're doing it wrong. They probably don't like this, whatever, right? That negative voice. So that's what I'm talking about. That patriarchal virus that lives within us, within our own system. We have to dismantle that from within. And so that's what this heroine journey helps us to do. So at the beginning of the cycle, that came to me. That's one thing that happens with syncing with Venus. It's like the world starts to respond to whatever the themes are. And so different people come in, different resources come in that really match the energetics of what's happening in the cycle. And so at the beginning of the cycle, Venus and the sun met in Aries in the tropical zodiac. And that's important. In the tropical zodiac, in the Western zodiac, which I have used. I have been a Western astrologer using the tropical zodiac for as long as I've done astrology. And so Aries energy, that first sign of the zodiac, is about ignition. It's about the spark. It's about the trailblazing energy that moves life forward. It's about birth. Of course, it's the first sign. What can even happen without birth? And yet in astrology, Aries is connected to Mars, the masculine. And I would say that in this system that we're currently in, Mars has been really distorted. Instead of protecting life, Mars is the warrior, Mars is killing, Mars is raping, all of the myths about the actual archetype of Mars are showing that kind of behavior. And so that's the first sign of the zodiac, like what is going on. So that is a huge clue. And if you haven't sat and thought about that, like why are we using a system that begins with violence? And so my inspiration after listening to this incredible woman, Ellie Carter, she's in her 30s now, and she's really, really been trying to tell people what's going on and the extent that this abuse happens. She says that we do not live in the world that we think we live in. This trafficking is in every town in some capacity. There is so much of it. And when you look at the information that's coming out about the men that have been caught with abusive child pornography. Oh gosh, I don't know what's going to happen if I say that word. Oops. I just recently saw a visual of this in the United States, and there's so many red dots of these men that have been caught with this. So there's something that feels like truth, even though it's a hard truth, and nobody wants to accept that that's the world that we live in. We are getting into a point where it's getting harder and harder to deny it. And so I really saw her spirit of that bravery, that courage, her risking her own life because she is getting threatened for the level of exposure that she brought forward. And her website is alliesarmy.com if you want to connect with her movement and what she's been having events. And she really keeps her focus on the children. She is doing this for the children because there are many, many, many children, too many children, thousands of children, millions of children. I don't know how many children that are still in these kind of situations right now. And until we end that, there's no new earth. There's no golden age until that is gone, until we create a culture that is based on protecting children. That has to be the first principle there, that birth energy of honoring the feminine, honoring the birth, honoring the child that's born. I think we're deluding ourselves that we are able to create anything new. And not to say it's going to end all at once and then the new is going to start. But for those of us that have really been awakened for years, I think it's important to be in this kind of acknowledgement and awareness and to look at how are we creating the new projects, the new systems that have that core protection for innocence, protection for children, and support of the mothers, support of the feminine, that matrilineal way of holding the feminine as sacred. And not to say that there's going to be some kind of flip and that suddenly it's going to be the women in power and they're going to, use their force against the men. It's not that at all. The mother energy includes everyone. The mother energy doesn't exclude the son from the daughter. The mother, the true mother energy, the true mother heart is going to take care of all of her children. That's the nature of the healthy mother. So that's the energy of this matrilineal kind of culture, which we have hints of from the past. And many of us feel that in our cellular memory, in our bones, in our dreams. We feel that memory of a time where we lived in harmony, where we lived in the right way. And we see this in some of the preservation of the indigenous traditions, where there is a total orientation towards nature and harmony. And so we all have that. We've all, at some point, every human has come from indigenous context. And so as we begin to see this old world truly, truly, truly falling apart at the next level, I think it's important to be looking at how are we taking our shiny visions and how are we including this protection of children? How are we including the support of mothers? How are we including this reverence for the feminine? And how are we as women working together? How are we healing the sister wound? Because I don't know about you, but for me, I have been hurt so much by other women. I mean, especially spiritual women. It has been brutal. And not to say I've been hurt by men too, but especially in this last year. I've been on this quest to find my community, to find my people, to start a new chapter where I could actually be living on land with other kindred spirits and working on this new paradigm kind of culture, creating villages, creating sustainability through food, looking at how do we get sovereign in our medicine and bring that medicine to natural remedies, to the earth. All of these inspirations. I've been on a massive quest to find the people, find the land. And you could say that from a ordinary perspective, I have failed. I have failed because I am still here almost exactly a year after I left my home of 27 years in Northern California, left my grown daughter and packed up with my 3 cats and my dog and went, and moved across the country for these invitations to work with other women. And each one ended in the spirit of division was present, and it definitely destroyed whatever was trying to be created. The spirit of division is so strong right now. And so how do we as women see that, and how do we work in a collaborative way? How do we outsmart that? Because it is strong. I mean, unbelievable what I have seen. So this cycle is very much a cycle that's about new beginnings, because the nature of this cycle is that it started near the spring equinox of last year. And so there's a certain alignment with that spring energy of moving forward, which in the Western zodiac is correlated with Aries. And so what happens in this cycle, there's a lot of fresh start energy that's going to keep rippling, because these themes, so in the tropical, we're in a Venus and Aries cycle, that's going to repeat in 8 years, and then 8 years, and then 8 years. So there's really this weaving that happens with these different Venus stars that open every 19 months, and they begin a new heroine's journey. And so the reason I keep mentioning the tropical zodiac is that part of this journey, part of this underworld journey, is a real recognition that in order to crack the code on the matrix, and astrology is part of the matrix. I hate to break it to you. I hated to break it to me, because I love astrology. I love self-growth. I love learning about myself. It gave me so many reflections, as it would. There are codes. So I think the important piece there is to understand its role. Not to say that it can't bring insight. It does, of course, because it's our codes. But are we finding those codes in order to then just create a new identity? I'm a this, I'm a that, and to stay in that. Like, who assigned that identity? Why can I tell women so much about themselves when they come to me? How do I know? By looking at their chart. So there's some element there of predetermination that you just simply can't deny. I mean, you have been looking at charts and looking at astrology for so long. And so do we want to stay in that box? Because it is a box, and I don't care if you don't believe astrology at all, you're still affected by that box, clearly. Those of us who know astrology know this to be true. So in order to have greater accuracy in understanding what the codes are, I switched over to the sidereal zodiac, which is the original zodiac. This is what the elites use. Those in power, I mean, those beings who are orchestrating this reality to benefit them, to use humans for their own food, in a sense, their own nourishment, their own life force, energy. They understand the occult. They understand astrology. I mean, they're all using it. And so that's important to know, that there is something in place here. So let's go back to that post that I made. Let's go back to what I was saying there. The first revelation of the underworld is that we're living in a hell realm. It's not sexy, but it's the truth that sets us on our path to discover what this realm is and who we truly are. It doesn't mean that there's not beautiful experiences here. Art is the revolution. Art is our superpower. And maps like astrology can show us our codes, the cards that we hold in this incarnation. Know thyself. This insight can fortify the bars in the prison or open the doors to liberation. Venus, the feminine, our heart wisdom, those are the golden keys. Those are the golden keys to our freedom. So this is really important. It's like to know that these are our codes, but not to then become enamored with them, be like, oh my goodness, I'm with this, I'm with that, it's so wonderful. No, it's not wonderful, because The truth of your identity is that you're an eternal soul. And maybe you did get some good cards this life, and that's great. I'm happy for those that do. And not everybody does. That's the thing. Not everybody does. It's so obvious. Why do some people seem to have doors open and have opportunities come and have the resources they need, and other people don't? So the first revelation of the underworld is that we're living in a hell. It's not fair. It's not equal. You can be an incredibly pure, creative, brilliant soul and have hardship after obstacle, after abuse, after abuse, after abuse. And so what's up with that? The spiritual teachings would say, well, you have karma. You did something in another life, and that's coming back to you. And therefore, you're having all these obstacles. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to purify. Okay, I'm not saying this lightly. I was a devoted Tibetan Buddhist for 20 years. So I have received these teachings from the masters of this time, who are trained with the real deal, the last Tibetan masters, and they were caring for the lineage. So I went all in because I had such a profound experience when I was 22 years old of awakening, of liberation. And I wanted to understand what that was. So I went to spirituality, try to understand what happened to me, because it was time limited. This sense of freedom and knowing myself as an eternal being and being able to relate to reality in a really different way. I didn't have the same limitations as I did before and after that time. And so trying to understand that feeling of freedom. And that's really what Buddhism is about becoming free, to wake up within samsara, to wake up to the truth of who we are. So I would say that every single religion has truth, and it also has falsity. And Tibetan Buddhism has some very compelling truths, no doubt. They're really bringing some incredible wisdom. And I found abuse there. I found cult-like behavior there, just like in every other spiritual group that I have been devoted to. I've left 5 cults in this life, which is kind of a lot for one life. I was raised in a cult, a new age, very influential cult that had its heyday in the 80s, the Emissaries of Divine Light. It was funded by British royalty. They had centers all over the world. They were a very big deal. Like, they were the ones that were here to save the world. And I had a very early relationship with kind of apocalyptic content of the world's ending, and we're here and we're going to save the world. But, the sun's, I don't know, there was all this like, the sun's going to explode, and this kind of like revelations type of content that I was exposed to very early. But it was definitely stressful as a child to be trying to process those pieces. The point being that I have earnestly studied and done my best to receive the wisdom from these traditions. And I got to the point where I saw that there's always truth that resonates. I have had ecstatic experiences being on retreat, being in altered states, having this incredible upswelling of devotion for teachers, having incredible insights, just being in containers that felt so curated to bringing out the best in everyone. And yet I had to see that there's also falsity and abuse and lies and suffering. I mean, one of my Buddhist teachers, my first woman Buddhist teacher, who I fell in love with, not romantically, but spiritually, she told me I was going to go to hell because I'd had an abortion. That was pretty intense. And all these practices to save myself from going to hell from that. So we are going to find these truths across all the traditions. The thing that I have come to know is not to take it 100% as truth, to know that there's truth and to know that there's lies. And so I think there's a reason that Buddhists start with, we are living in life is suffering. That's the first truth that Buddhists teach. In order to understand what this reality is and to begin to understand how we liberate ourselves from the constraints of the matrix. In Gnosticism, they talk about the fall, the falling into the material realm, Sophia, the feminine, falling into the material realm and the suffering that happens there, and that there is this trap that prevents us from knowing our divine nature. And so that's something that I think is really, really important to contemplate and consider if we're on a spiritual path. And there's too many people right now, so many people in the spiritual realm that haven't even entered the underworld. They're just in the topside world with their, spiritual wisdom, and it's so sexy. And they're launching their businesses and having, 7-figure incomes, sharing their amazing wisdom, women's empowerment, and they haven't even arrived in the underworld. So that's the door to the underworld, to understand that, yes, there can be good stuff that happens to some people, to us. There can be beauty, nature can be incredible. Not to say that there's not something organic and resonant and natural here, but there's something else going on. There's some kind of construct, there's some kind of interference that's also here. So only when we begin to see that and know that can we begin to ask why. And if there is some kind of interference here, how do we navigate that to find the truth? And there's something wrong with the way this is set up. It's a fundamental level. It feels wrong. And if you're a sensitive being, you've known that since you're a child. If you happen to have a life where you have had one thing after another thing happen to you, and you're like, I am a good person. Why did I get abused? Why do I keep being abused? Why does this stuff keep happening to me? I think this is a really important truth to know, that just because bad things are happening to you, it doesn't mean that there's a correlation that you did something bad and that you are inherently, working through your karma or something. There's something wrong here because we live in an inverted reality. So when we understand that things are backward here, it's something's wrong and things are inverted, then we begin to flip things and to see, oh, it's probably the opposite. So if the new age is saying that I create my own reality and that I can create whatever I want through my thoughts, through my manifestation, through my meditations, and then if I'm not doing that, well, then I'm probably, not doing it right, or, I'm not a high enough frequency. We can say, okay, that's probably bullshit. If that's the popular teaching, and this is the teaching that I grew up with. There was Course of Miracles study groups happening in the spiritual community. I have been exposed to the texture of this way, this new age way, for a long time. And I have to say, I'm so freaking bored of it. And I've just been kind of waiting. It's become so mainstream. I'm like, when are we going to be done with this? But it doesn't seem to be getting done. It seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And more people seem to be falling from it because it sounds so great. A lot of it just feels so great. And yeah, let's all just raise our frequency and create the world that we want to have. And if you're not doing that, well, there's something wrong with you. That's the mentality. And it's really part of the abuse system. That's part of the abuse system, is holding that perspective that people that have harmful things happen have somehow chosen it. The souls have chosen to come here and have these lessons on earth. I mean, this is the core of the New Age teachings, right? So if you have found in your journey that that has been harmful and you are, no, you're like, that's not true, then probably what I'm sharing with Venus Wisdom is going to resonate for you more, because I'm really at this point where I want to call forward the women that want to lean in and want to relate to what I'm sharing. Because as I said, I don't know what your wisdom is, but I do know that this map can help amplify your wisdom. And what I'd like to see over time, and I've been teaching on this for a long time, and some part of me had hoped that by now we would have a core group of women that knew how to sync with Venus and were really consciously staying connected in a network around the world, because I have connected with women around the world. And I finally uncovered one of the reasons why I think there hasn't been that cohesion, or that like something really substantial. You have to stay tuning into something in order to allow it to develop. And not only is there so many distractions out there right now, it's like, oh, I'm tasting this, and then I'm going to go do that, and then I'm going to go do that. I mean, it's not easy, but that's part of what I do. I'm holding this space for women who are on the heroine's journey to understand how the cosmic energy can support you as you walk through hell, as you discover that you're a being of infinite love, and that you're walking through hell, and that this construct, this matrix, it is falling apart. That is what is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And it's not going to happen in a minute. We've got to walk this journey together of bringing forth those beautiful dreams of what we know the world can be, and not just thinking it, not just wishing it, not just meditating on it, but actually activating our feminine alchemy, which is this embodied ability to create worlds. We can birth children. And for me, motherhood was one of the most incredible experiences of waking up to unconditional love. But we can also create worlds, regardless of whether we have children. Women have this capacity. And the Venus cycle is showing us how to do this. And the Venus cycle is taking us into the underworld. This is an important piece of it in order to do that. So if we have been taught that the topside world is so good, and in the topside world, you can achieve anything you want to achieve if you have the right mindset, and you have total control over your destiny. You can transform anything to be what you want. And what else? I don't know. I think you get the drift. And that the underworld is a place that is bad and gnarly because there's suffering and pain, and you have to let go of your jewels and your identity and your comforts to get there. Well, it probably means the underworld is really, really important in our awakening process, because the underworld, there has been a concerted effort to associate the underworld with hell, and to have this negative connotation with the underworld. And so we need to look at that too and wonder why, because I think that all of the secrets of liberation start when we enter the underworld in a consciousness way. I mean, sometimes we're sucked into those places where we're stripped of everything because someone dies, or we get sick, or life just brings us into these experiences that strip us, and we're raw, and that makes us more real. We're the most real that we're going to be at the moment of our death, right? I mean, that's when these people that you hear so many stories, people had their priorities all on the material world, making money, having success. But when they die, what's important? Love, connections. And I just had this experience personally. My father died in October, and he was not a good father. He left us when I was 3 months old. I mean, he was really absent and also very intentionally diminishing my mother and trying to make her life harder, which was, he was like, there's a brutalness to the way that he did that. And so I connected with a friend who is a medium after his death. And she said, yeah, he realized at the time of death that he blew it. And he was worried what was going to happen to him, because even in his death, his being was still worried about him and what was going to happen to him. He was really more of a narcissistic kind of consciousness. But he did realize that at death, like, wow, I missed the boat. I missed it. And so that is another reason why I think in Tibetan Buddhism, there's so much focus on death and preparing for death. It's really, really important that we are preparing for that moment when we're going to die, because that's going to be a doorway that we walk through, where that's going to inform what happens next in a huge way, and what's going to happen to our soul and what's going to happen to our spirit. And so that preparation, understanding of how we meet that moment, I think, is part of these teachings of the underworld and the life and the death and the resurrection, right? And so one of the things that has come into my field in this last underworld, which was so incredible and also brutal, there's that word again, is that there is a necessity to really understand this resurrection process before we die. And that's something that Mary Magdalene said, that we need to resurrect while we're still alive, which, I kind of feel like the whole Mary Magdalene thing has become a whole other religion. I don't know that much about all of that, and the rose lineage and all these kind of new spiritual philosophies that are coming out of it. I'm personally in a place where I do respect these different wisdom keepers, and obviously she was one, but I'm really not into worshiping anyone. And I think that that's important, really important, that we're not just having these idols of whoever they are, movie stars or spiritual leaders or angels, that it's really, this map is teaching spiritual sovereignty. It is you and your connection to original God, source, whatever you want to call that. I know the word God can be triggering. I have been calling that the original angel that came to me yesterday, which is really fun. If you're a fan of the OA, shout out. But that's Sophia. That's that original feminine wisdom, that cosmic womb. And I found the coolest translation of the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. And I wanted to share that because I'm just like, wow, here it is. So this is from a guy named Nabu on Substack, and he has ADHD Mastery is his Substack name. So that's where this is coming from. By the way, I am starting a membership on Substack. I'm super excited. Share more of these deep thoughts from Syncing with Venus, and invite community and rebuild community, which I tried to do in 2023. And yeah, it didn't work out so well. I've learned a lot of lessons from that process of trying to bring women together to gather and to stay focused enough on this syncing with Venus that we can really discover together what this map is. I've discovered a lot on my own, but I know that there's certain illuminations that will not happen until we're in a togetherness. I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited to invite you in. I got my first paid subscriber today, $13 a month. I'm absolutely thrilled. And we will be doing monthly gatherings. I'll be doing free classes over there. So I'll put the link in here, but check this out. Okay, so this is a translation from Aramaic. And I'm not going to try to say the Aramaic because I don't know how, but this is how it goes. O cosmic birther, the womb of existence from which all things continuously emerge. May the sacred vibration through which you organize reality be recognized and honored in everything we do. May the sacred queendom, the divine feminine creative principle, fully express itself in earthly reality as it does in the dimension of light. May your loving desire for the full expression of divine consciousness be realized in earthly reality as fully as it is in the dimension of light. Provide us today with the nourishment, physical, emotional, and spiritual, that we genuinely need for our full flourishing. Release us from the energetic knots we have accumulated as we release others from the grip of our resentment toward them. Do not let us become lost in the illusion of separation from you, but free us from the immature consciousness that arises from that forgetting. For the divine feminine creative principle, the power of life and the radiance of all existence belong to you through all cycles of time. So be it, grounded in me, expressed through me, made real in the world through my conscious participation. How's that? Pretty beautiful, huh? So that is what we're talking about here. It's like this this descent from the light, the visible light spectrum, into the dark, into the depths, into matter. And how do we, what happens in that experience is a lot of beings want to go up. They want to ascend, which, let me tell you, I grew up in this new age spiritual community that was all about ascension. That was the talk all the time, this ascension frequency. But really, what the massive revelation is that we're meant to go down and in. That is the liberation, not up and out. And so it's not just the body that we're descending into, although that is part of relaxing in and actually feeling the sensation of our body, which is part of the feminine embodiment. But it's also this understanding of the underworld realm and the depths of that, something that is deeper than the light spectrum. The light spectrum is very limited. So we can't see so much of the reality that's here. And that's what many people are beginning to understand, that there are beings here that we cannot see. I mean, some people can see them, they have those abilities, or they can feel them. There is so much going on in this reality that we cannot see, that's beyond the visible light spectrum. So we're going into the invisible. We're going down and into the invisible to find that deeper wisdom. And so this feels really important, to look that hell realm in the eye and say, yeah, this place is hell. And we are going to create something different. And we have the power to do that. We're remembering the power to do that as the construct falls. And I think that's why things are getting so intense. Many of us, right, are picking up on that these beings know that their time is up and that the construct that they've created is falling apart. And so there's this huge bid towards violence and war and terror and and end time scripts, these are all scripts. And so that is this final bid for control and domination that I do not believe will win. And yet I also think, we may leave these bodies in this transition. I think there will be a lot of people that will be leaving with everything that's being put into motion to destroy. And so it's really important to be thinking about our death and contemplating what we're going to do. Do we want to go up and out to the light? Might not be the best idea. Something to consider. So all of this is to preface the class that I'm going to be giving about the moon and why moon is a false feminine light context that I actually got the message affirmed interferes with our feminine alchemy. It interferes with it. And I've known this for years because I've been thinking with Venus. I've been watching Venus and I've been receiving her light in my eyes, feet on the ground. And I'm a philosopher. I'm always thinking about this. How did we get here? What is this realm about? And what is this cycle teaching? How can I move with that? How can I sync with that? And many years ago, I realized that the moon was not something that I wanted to connect with. I wasn't afraid of it. It's not like that. It's not like, oh, the moon, I'm scared of it. It's just like, no, my body was like, no, I don't want that light in my eyes. I don't want to move with that energy. And then to see what happens at the full moon, all of the emotional outbursts and intensity and triggers, all of that's our history. It's our conditioning. It's our stories. And so I've been more gentle teaching the moon is our conditioned feminine. It's what we inherited, especially from our mother line and our family line. And it's the emotions which need to be moved. All of that's true. And there is something going on with the moon that is more deceptive. One, the moon is not feminine. The moon is not feminine in many, many, many cultures. It is so clear. I mean, look at the languages in which the moon is has a masculine connotation. Most languages make objects either masculine or feminine. So the moon is not feminine. The moon is not benevolent. And I think that this affirmation that it interferes with awakening our feminine creative power is inspiring me to come out and share what I know from my lived experience and to unpack that a bit more. For women that are curious, for women that are open, I do not want to convince anyone. I have no interest in that. If you think that's BS, that's totally fine. But for the women that resonate and are feeling it already, like, something's not right here with this new age way and the moon rituals and the new moon, full moon, like show me one astrologer that's not giving the new moon and the full moon report and hinging everything on the moon. When the moon is not feminine and the moon is not benevolent and the moon is a part of the matrix system that's controlling in its own way. That's what its role is. It's part of the timekeeping system here. And so I don't think that is 100% natural. I don't think that's 100% organic. I'm not saying it doesn't have influence. I'm not saying it's not beautiful aesthetically. Of course, I can see there's a beauty there, but that doesn't mean that it's here to support us. And so, there's a pretty popular spiritual influencer. I think she goes by Sister Shanti. And I've been talking about the moon and Venus and getting ready to come out about it and be like, I really need to share because of the content that I came across. This woman in the underworld, I came across all these amazing creators in the underworld, and she just blew me away with all of her research through the ancient texts, affirming the role of the moon, affirming the construct, affirming what astrology is, and really decoding that through the lens of alchemy to understand what's being said in these ancient texts. And so I was like, I got to come out about this because I normally wouldn't. I would just if a woman comes to me and has a session and she loves the moon, I'm not going to tell her, I'm not going to go against her wisdom. I'm just going to share her Venus with her. But I've gotten to the point where it's clear to me that we need to choose. the women that aren't having a really powerful experience syncing with Venus, it may be because you're still not, you're not, you're oriented to the moon. And so you're not really even in this, you're not in the container of the Venus cycle. If you're celebrating the fire horse year, lunar new year, well, you're just oriented to the moon for the whole year. You just left the Venus container, whereas we're a little more than halfway through the Venus cycle. A little more than halfway. No, that's not true. We are 13 out of 19 months. So yeah. The new cycle starts in October, end of October. And so there's an integrity there. There's working with the container. And one of the teachers that I had that was very powerful in some ways and very harmful in other ways really talked about what's first. What is first? Only one thing can be first. And when you understand what's first in your experience and you actually choose that, well, you're syncing with that. And so I think that this is a piece, is that women are all over the place and they're doing all kinds of new age stuff and all kinds of rituals. And they're like, oh yeah, Venus, she's cool too. It's not like that. It's a very intentional way of entering that container to facilitate your own initiation, and that it keeps deepening. It keeps deepening. Anyway, okay, Sister Shanti, who I really appreciated because she's a freedom person and she's authentic, but she came out on Instagram hardcore saying that if you thought the moon was false and wasn't positive, well, then you had mother issues. Like, it was a super intense post. And I just, shared my truth about that because I have so much knowing in my body and was just preparing, like coming out of this the most intense underworld experience. And I'm not talking about just the 3 months, I'm talking about this whole last year and really like that clarity. And I want to share this. And I was just like, wow. There it is, there it is, that like, if you think that the moon is not a representation of the feminine, then you have mother issues and you're wounded and you're this and you're that. I think we all have to discover that for ourselves. So I'm not going to tell you, like, if you don't think that Venus is this cycle that's supporting you in discovering the truth of your feminine power, then you're whatever, out to lunch, have mother issues. I'm not going to say that, but I'm saying that I think we really need to discover for ourselves. We each need to be in a inquiry, in a very serious quest to discover the truth and to go out and look at Venus. She's in the evening star now, sky. She's evening star and she's visible after sunset. And to be in that open heart, open mind place, go look at Venus and experience how that feels. Go look at the moon. If you're still at a point where you really have a relationship with the moon, and notice the difference. That's what I did. That's how I came to my conclusion. Was through a direct on the ground experiment. And so I encourage every woman to do that and find your own. Maybe there's some women that are oriented to the moon, and maybe there's some women that are oriented to Venus. And I even wonder if the underworld realm is the realm of Venus, and the topside world, and all the success that can be had there in the Matrix, like in the movie when the guy's like, hey, I just want to go back in. I want to eat the steak. I don't care that it's not true. Maybe that's part of the inversion. And part of this whole revelation for me is an understanding that trying to share Venus wisdom, like as a coach in that coaching world, in that online women's spirituality world, has come to an end. Like, I'm turning in my notice. I'm not going to be that kind of coach anymore. And so much of that has to do with the money and the money exchange. And we do need to survive in this realm. We do need money. And, it is beautiful to have abundance. And I always wanted to have abundance. My whole plan was to really do this more high ticket coaching for the top side queens, the women who had the resources, the women who I knew this map would help them tremendously in creating their legacy, in creating what they were doing in their businesses. I really have this memory of being an oracle for the high courts. That's been a role for me. And so I was like, all right, I'm here. I can do that. Like, I'd love to support these women who have a lot of success in understanding the Venus map. And there was just so many disconnects in that one. A lot of my journey was feeling that I couldn't reach them. They were kind of like the popular girls. And oh, I have so much trauma with the popular girls from my own life story. Like, I have the secret terror of the popular girls. I was like bullied very harshly in high school by the popular girls. But, I love women. I want to be in service to powerful women. I want to be in service to the leaders, the women that are doing things, be like, hey, I've got this map. And part of it was like, I couldn't get their attention. Like I couldn't capture attention. I couldn't use the words, the messaging. And so part of my whole like waking up recently is like, I don't think I'm here for the topside queens. I think I'm here for the underworld queens, the women who have been on the deep journey, gotten stripped again and again. Like, these women, even I'm getting chills. This woman on Facebook, I don't even know her. And she's in this intense, epic journey of having her children taken away, clearly wrongfully, by an abusive narcissist. And the way she's showing up and meeting that and sharing her heart, that's an underworld queen. Or one of my clients is, creating this incredible new paradigm school that she's able to channel so much of her lived wisdom as a gift for these children to actually help them be in the beauty of who they are, be in their own brilliance, and have that nurtured in such a gentle way. And she's had a life where she really went through it. She really had the trials and tribulations. And so I think that there's something about that I'm really paying attention to. Like, who is this for? It's not about the money. It's not about the women that can pay me, what coaches traditionally charge, which I have charged, which I have received, which has been a huge blessing in my life. And I think there's something here that is not about the money, not about the moony, that there's something about the Venus exchange that is about exchanging value. Venus is about values. And we know that money is a total it's a total made up crazy kind of part of the slave system. And we use it because we need it, but that's all changing, right? It's coming apart at the seams. The whole money things, it's going to go away. And then there's going to be the push for the digital money to bring in more control. But regardless, this value, how do we exchange value as equals, as equal women of wisdom? How do I share this with the women who feel it and know that this map can help them? And then how do we have an exchange of some kind of value, And that's important. I've spent a lot of time supporting people and supporting women where there wasn't an exchange in value, in friendships and in other relationships. And it's draining. So there needs to be that mutual benefit. How do we create this win-win mutual benefit by sharing our wisdom with each other? So that's the direction I'm going in. And I want to show you where we are on this map. And I want to mention that I'll be sharing more about why I switched to the sidereal zodiac. I think I gave you the short version. but it's really for the accuracy. I want to do another video about some of the things. Again, I go into things as an experiment, and I just had so many affirmations that the sidereal is more accurate. It's one of the reasons I never like to do predictions. I was like, I don't know, I hate predictions, and it seems like it's blurry with tropical. I'm like, oh, this might happen, but it doesn't quite seem to happen in that way. And sidereal has that reputation. Like, if you go to a good sidereal astrologer, you could find your lost keys. I mean, it's very precise. The prediction is very precise. And I think that's what astrology is. It's a template that is mapping our destiny. And in order to break free of that, we need to understand that that's there. So if we're using this other system that's kind of slightly off, I just don't think it's as accurate. And so I want the accuracy so that I can transcend that system and reclaim my sovereignty, because I definitely am not the person that got the good chart. Although I have to say that my sidereal astrology is way better. Like, my Venus is +5, where in tropical astrology, everything's in detriment, everything's negative. Like, I just have a terrible, terrible chart. And regardless, in either system, I obviously, didn't have a life where things were easy. But I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for decades. Just like, oh, it's right around the corner. It's surely coming, And it's through those trials and tribulations that I was like, there's not a correlation here between my intelligence, my commitment, my ability to work, my devotion, my, like, what I'm putting in is not translating to what I'm receiving. Like, I don't, in the last couple of years, like, I don't have a viable business anymore because there's just not enough business coming in, and I can't figure out this whole marketing messaging, regardless of my best efforts, in order to have enough, sessions coming in that I can actually pay my bills. So I'm still working with women, and women that show up with that that resonance and that openness, and not just like, oh, this is another cute thing, like, oh, Venus wisdom, I'm gonna just go see what that is. But like, they feel it, you feel the call, you feel the power of what this is, you feel the authenticity of what this heroine's journey brings forth, the trueness of it. And so let me show you this. Let me show you this map I made. I'm holding lightly now that this is a Venus and Aries cycle, because it's not in the sidereal, but this is still the movements. So we're starting at number 1 with Venus meeting the sun, in tropical was in Aries. And then she's visible. She turns direct. She's, boom, at her brightest and highest in morning star. She's then the furthest from the earth. So it's like, this is a mother-daughter story. This is a Demeter Persephone story. And mother, sun, daughter, Venus are showing us on earth something incredibly important about the divine feminine. And how do we connect with our own divine feminine? So life, creation, and it's at this point here, when she's the furthest distance from mother, she's leaving home, that she starts on her trials and tribulations. There's that myth of Persephone being snatched by Hades and descending into the underworld, which is a newer version than the ancient story of Inanna with her sister Ereshkigal being in the underworld. So there's this trials and tribulation piece that's really important. And I want to create something. There's obstacles, there's interferences, there's not a correlation between what I'm wanting to create and what's coming back. Like, all the density of this realm and all of the distortion of this realm has to be contended with. This is the doorway to the underworld when she descends. And from Earth's perspective, we can no longer see her. She's going behind the sun. So this is her underworld meeting with the sun. She has a earthwise meeting, wise, close to earth meeting with the sun to begin the cycle. And then halfway through, 9.5 months later, one human gestation cycle, something is born in the underworld. What is born? Our maturity, our sovereignty, our discovery that we contain the unconditional love that we've been longing for, that we've been trying to get from our lover, from our husband, from our children, from our friends. We contain the source of infinite, limitless love within our own being, within our own body. We can give that to ourselves. We can connect with that and become that. Maybe not all the time, but as a movement. And we fill up with that. We hold ourselves here. We've birthed ourselves as an initiated woman, and then we re-arise into the evening sky to begin to find the others and connect with them, and to find the other sovereign women that want to begin to weave together as sovereign beings who know their gifts. Well, this is where we are right about now, right? So in 8 days, we'll be at the third portal between the moon and Venus, the conditioned feminine, the matrix control system, and the liberated, infinite, eternal feminine that's helping us awaken to the truth of who we are. Those meetings are really important because it's an opportunity for transmutation. What emotions are coming up? What stories are coming up? What is the negative voice in your head telling you? Those moments are really powerful to tune into your inner world and listen and feel and receive and transmute, because we have that power to do that. So this is a map that I'm probably not going to change for this cycle, but for the next cycle, I am going to create this from the sidereal perspective. There's a 24-degree difference, so a lot of the signs change. But here's the important thing to know. You could sync with Venus without any signs. You could take out all the signs and you would still have this incredible movement of union of light and love, sun and Venus, gifted to the earth, gifted to matter, gifted to us in bodies here, spirit, soul, connected to the body. And that dawning of creation, birth, bursting forth, wanting to create the world that we want to live in. So many women are dreaming the same dream: retreat centers and villages and schools and earthen houses and growing food and having time for leisure, having time to make music, having time to play again. Like, so many of us are dreaming the same dream. So that dreaming, that being willing to show up and shine and be visible in what we're wanting to create, that legacy that we're wanting to leave to our children, and then leaving home to go on a journey once again to find our sovereignty, to meet the trials and tribulations of the matrix, to see the tricks of the matrix inside of us, outside of us, to see how this is a game that has been orchestrated and we are chess pieces in this game. And so how do we become the players of our own game? How do we outsmart the game in our awakening to the truth of who we are and what this reality is, so that we can be those world builders? We descend in the underworld for the deeper wisdom, the deepening. Let's discover together what this is. I have some real sense of it from all this time, but you may have wisdom to bring to it. And when we're ready to have this collective gathering of our wisdoms, I'm so here for it. And that's re-arising. We begin to share, we begin to connect, we begin to share the truth more freely. And when we share our truth in this reality, if you're a truth teller, if you're a sensitive, if you are pure, you have this purity of heart, you will have pushback, you will have attacks, you will have interference. That's to be expected. To have the opposite expectation that if you're pure and good and coming from love, that you're going to be embraced and everything's going to manifest the way you want. No, That's just not the way this works. This game is not like that. So this is where we're bringing more of our truth, more of our strength and who we are, more of our sovereignty, holding ourselves as we connect with others, making sure there's fair exchange in value, and beginning to weave the dreams. And then she comes home, and that will happen around August 15th, but she'll be at that greatest distance again on the return and starting to come home. The heroine initiated, the initiated woman, she'll be in her brightest, dripping jewel in the evening sky. And right around the equinox, that's going to be gorgeous. And then very quickly, she's going to go retrograde on October 3rd, and she's going to reflect, unwind, and dissolve back into the cosmos to begin a new cycle. On October 23rd, we'll begin a new cycle. So that's the map. You're totally welcome to message me if you want to get a PDF of that, follow along. And I will put the Substack info in there. I'd love to see you over there. I'm really excited to start to gather again. I used to do a lot of gatherings. I've done a lot of gatherings with women. And I think it's time. It's time to do that. For those that feel it, for those that are willing to go beyond what we've been taught, what we've been told, and be in the wild experiment of waking up in the game together, becoming what we are, which is world builders, and discovering what that means together. I'm certainly don't feel like I have all the answers, but I feel like I'm in a direction here, and I want to share. I want to share that with those of you that are open, with those of you that are resonating. So I've been going on for some time. I don't know if there's anyone here who has been tuning in. I hope so. I go live on YouTube just in case. I might connect with some new beings who resonate, some new heroines. Feel free to like, of course, and subscribe if you want to support this message to get out to more. I have had times in this career where we've had a lot more people tuning in, and it's not about the numbers for me. It's really about the quality of the women that are feeling this resonance, feeling it in your body, and you're like, yes, what is this? I want to play. I want to play. And let's do it. Okay, that's it for now. Feel free to put any questions, and I'm happy to circle back and answer them. And lots of love to you. Happy Friday. I will not be doing Venus Wisdom Friday Lives anymore because I actually am working now in a really interesting new job. And I'll share more about that at some point, but I will be going live on Thursdays instead, is my intention. And if you like this, please leave a comment. Please let me know, because I really sometimes have no idea about what's landing for women out there. And every comment, every reflection, like, really helps me to know that there are women that are not on off the beaten track, road less traveled, who are like, yes, I want this, I want to know more, because I want to connect with you. So let me know you're out there, and yeah, blessings on your journey.